You're standing in front of a bush covered in small, dark berries. You've never seen this exact plant before. There's no label, no app to scan it, no older sibling to ask, just you, a rumbling stomach, and a plant that might be dinner or might be the last thing you ever eat. This wasn't a rare situation for early humans. This was Tuesday. For most of human history, figuring out what was safe to eat wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was one of the deadliest ongoing problems our species ever faced, and it never really went away until agriculture and grocery stores made it almost invisible. Here's the scale of the problem. Botanists estimate that a huge percentage of wild plants in any given ecosystem are either mildly toxic, seriously toxic, or outright lethal if eaten raw. Some poisons act instantly. Others build up slowly and kill you days later, long after you've forgotten which plant you ate. And some of the deadliest plants on Earth look almost identical to their safe edible cousins. Water hemlock, one of the most poisonous plants in North America, closely resembles wild carrot. Get it wrong once, and there often wasn't a second chance to learn from the mistake. So how did early humans not simply die out? The answer starts inside your own mouth, right now, whether you've ever thought about it or not. Humans evolved an extraordinarily sensitive detector for one specific taste: bitterness. Human tongues carry roughly 25 distinct bitter taste receptor genes, more than almost any other basic taste category. That's not a coincidence. In nature, bitterness is one of the most reliable warning signs for toxic alkaloid compounds, the class of chemicals responsible for a huge share of plant poisons. A child who instinctively spits out a bitter leaf isn't being picky. They're running a 500,000-year-old safety protocol, inherited directly from ancestors who survived specifically because that reflex existed. But taste alone wasn't enough. Some deadly plants aren't bitter at all. So early humans developed something far more powerful: cultural transmission of extremely specific, hard-won knowledge, passed down with obsessive precision from one generation to the next. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Hadza in Tanzania, have documented children as young as 4 beginning to learn detailed plant knowledge: which parts are edible, which seasoned, which preparation method removes the toxin, and which look-alike species must never be confused. This knowledge could take 15 or 20 years to fully acquire. It wasn't a fun fact. It was survival infrastructure, and getting even one plant wrong in that mental catalog could be fatal. There's also a technique that shows up independently in societies across the entire world, from the Amazon to Papua New Guinea to ancient California: leaching and processing. Acorns, a major calorie source for many ancient peoples, are naturally loaded with bitter, mildly toxic tannins. Someone at some point, thousands of years ago, discovered that soaking crushed acorns in running water for days would pull the tannins out, turning a borderline inedible seed into a safe staple food. Cassava, a staple crop across parts of Africa and South America, contains cyanide compounds in its raw form and requires a multi-day process of grating, soaking, and fermenting to become safe. Someone had to discover that too, almost certainly through trial and devastating error, and then teach it perfectly to everyone who came after them. Humans weren't entirely alone in developing this skill either. Researchers studying wild chimpanzees have documented them deliberately seeking out and swallowing certain bitter, rough leaves whole, without chewing, a behavior that appears to physically scrape parasites from their intestines. Other primates have been observed eating specific clays and barks that seem to neutralize toxins in their regular diet. This suggests the instinct to test, learn, and pass down knowledge about which plants heal and which plants harm runs even deeper in our evolutionary history than the origin of humans themselves, embedded in primate behavior long before anyone was recording it. This is the part that's easy to miss. Every single edible plant you eat today that isn't safe raw, and there are hundreds of them, represents a discovery that someone, at some point in deep history, almost certainly paid for with real consequences. Not a controlled lab experiment. A real person, in a real moment, testing the unknown so that everyone downstream of them wouldn't have to. Compare that to your last trip to the grocery store. Every single item on those shelves has already been tested, certified, and labeled by people you will never meet, using safety systems built over centuries. You can walk down an aisle of unfamiliar foods with essentially zero fear, something that would have been an almost unimaginable luxury for the vast majority of humans who have ever lived. The next time you eat something you've genuinely never tried before, a new fruit, an unfamiliar vegetable, notice the tiny flicker of hesitation before the first bite. That flicker is ancient. It's the same circuit that once meant the difference between dinner and death, still quietly running in the background, even though the world around it has almost completely stopped needing it.